circumstances to be having this conversation with you?
Not at all, but I have to say it's not really news that there's massive overcrowding at the Rahima Moosa hospital, and the latest problem is because of the closure of the Johannesburg hospital. You know, they have more than 25,000 births every year at Rahima Moosa hospital. It's a specialized mother and child hospital, and they're just completely overstressed, as are other hospitals, because of the closure, redirection of patients from Johannesburg Hospital. But obviously this shouldn't be happening, and I have to say, they have a CEO at that hospital who I'm told spends most of the time working from home. I think that's completely unacceptable, and I think management has to account for this, but we have to look at the broader context. The broader context is that all our health facilities are terribly overstrained, and it's especially distressing when you find pregnant woman having to sleep on the floor. Look, for a long time, the situation there is that mothers give birth and then they leave after 4 hours, which is not what should be happening. That's how stressed they are, and it's been going on for many, many years, in fact.
It's not your problem, but as opposition, have you been putting pressure on the authorities to do something about it? I mean, we really shouldn't be having a conversation, Mr. Bloem, where you as shadow of health, if you will, for want of a better description, pardon me, but seem a little bit nonchalant about this has been going on for years and it's business as usual.
Well, I asked questions many years ago about Rahima Moosa, and I continue to ask questions regularly. In fact, 6 years ago, the figure I was given was that 1 in 4 of the patients there are from other countries. You can look at that in various ways. I actually think that what needs to happen is that our government needs to deduct money to pay for this from the South African Development Community, the SADC countries. Most of them come from Zimbabwe. A fair amount come from Mozambique and other neighboring countries. For some reason, quite a large number from Somalia. But I think our government should be going to the embassies of countries where they come from and make an arrangement to pay for it. We clearly can't cope with the numbers. In terms of the Constitution, they're obliged to treat all patients who present themselves there. But clearly we have a resources problem. Look, in the broader context is we have the Gauteng Health Department, notoriously corrupt and inefficient for many years. I can take you to Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital and you'll see similar overcrowded positions, overcrowded situation. I'm afraid we need sort of real change at the Gauteng Health Department. It's profoundly depressing. In fact, the Premier of our province has promised for many years that he's going to fix the Gauteng Health Department. It just seems to be as corrupt and inefficient and wasteful as ever.
And I suppose what's equally depressing is the irony of the fact that we were shutting down facilities that were put up for COVID-19 when there are hundreds of women that are sleeping on floors in hospitals, which, in my opinion, is not acceptable.
Well, the budget for the Gauteng Health Department is 60 billion rand. It's about the same as the budget that runs the entire city of Cape Town. I've actually come to the conclusion that if you spent that money properly, you actually could provide a much, much better quality service. Look, it's across the board. It's cancer patients are dying, as heart patients are dying. The province has admitted that they can't fix the Johannesburg Hospital. If you go down the road from Rahima Moosa Hospital to Helen Joseph Hospital, you will find deathly ill patients and casualties sleeping on the floor. You have a Gauteng Health Department in crisis, and it just doesn't seem the political will or the ability to actually just fix it. Occasionally it gets highlighted in a dramatic way. Somebody takes a video, but honestly, you have similar scenes in hospitals all over Gauteng. That's what's distressing about it, and the fact that the COVID money was largely wasted. They built all these extra wards which are just standing empty. Some of them haven't even been completed. I think the biggest scandal was the 700 million rand spent in Carltonville, out on the West Rand, with the Anglo-Ashanti Hospital. It's just a white elephant hospital. Now it's going to become a ghost hospital. They just simply don't have a use for it. Can you imagine if you spent that 700 million rand on Helen Joseph, Rahima Moosa, at Johannesburg Hospital, I mean, we'd have a much better service. Just imagine the suffering. You're a pregnant mother, and here you are sleeping on the floor. And as I said, in casualty departments all over the province are severely strained, and people are dying. People are dying. I mean, it's preventable. That's what's so tragic about it. If you spend the money properly, as I said, you've got a CEO at Rahima, Moosa, spends more of the time at home than at the hospital. How do we appoint such bad people in key positions? For a long time, we've got the wrong people in the wrong jobs, whereas we've got to reverse that. Put competent, honest people as heads of our hospitals, as heads of departments, and clear up the corruption and spend the money properly, and then you won't have these terrible scenes of people sleeping on the floor.
Now, I know that a few days ago, the DA was supporting a motion of no confidence in the president. It surely should be a lot easier for the DA to support a motion of no confidence in the CEO of a hospital that is spending half her time at home, as you suggest. Isn't that something that you should be doing?
Well, typically in legislatures, the notion of a conference is against the Premier, according to the rules, and we've actually done that. But as you know, what happens is the ruling party, they're all clubbed together, and we did put a motion of a conference in the Premier last year. I'm awaiting reply on questions I put in some weeks ago. In fact, they're overdue. The situation, Rahima, Moosa, is that, from what I'm told, I have had it confirmed elsewhere, the CEO is largely absent. And the other issue is you can't even phone the hospital. The switchboard is broken. I mean, the switchboard has been broken for nearly a year. I mean, how can you, something as basic as as a switchboard, people want to know what's happening with their relatives, and you can't even communicate. That hospital has been going downhill for many years now. It's just inhumane. It honestly is. And the fact that I'm still waiting for overdue replies to questions I put in some time ago, just confirms it. I think if the CEO isn't doing a job, she should be suspended, removed, and put somebody who can fix up that hospital.
We've seen many political parties, movements, and other organizations picketing because they want to put a message across. Now, you've been observing this situation, not your fault, obviously, but you've been observing it for many, many years. You've written to the powers that be. You've received no response. Surely it might mean an opportunity for you to get out of your seat, gather some of your leadership, and go and picket and create greater awareness. Get the public involved.
Yeah, look, the public know the state of our public hospitals. Anybody who goes to public hospital knows there's long queues, and I see, there's a place for protest, there's a place for parliamentary action. I see my job as exposing what is going wrong and proposing alternatives, which I've done for many years. But you know what? At some stage, the voters have to decide. The only change they're going to get is if they change the ruling party. We do have elections coming up for both province and national in 2 years, and the voters must decide. They decided differently at local level. In fact, the 3 metro cities in Gauteng now are all ruled by a multi-party coalition, and I think the same thing needs to happen at province. And we need to just fix up from top to bottom. It's cadre deployment. That's a lot of the problem. That's why we've got people deployed. They can't do the job, and they rob and steal, and we get what we see at Rahima, Moosa, and any other hospital in Gauteng that you can go to today. You will see the same terrible, shocking scenes in one way or another.
Now, Nozuko Mukabai, the hospital CEO, has suggested that this video was staged somewhat. She said she knew that the powers that be were coming in to have a look, and these individuals, these women, went and sat slept on the floor, sat on benches and chairs. Your take on that?
Look, I think that's just a cover-up. As I said, there have been other videos at other times, including at this hospital. I've taken up individual complaints. People contact me overcrowded conditions. I do what I can. I contact the CEO. I think we shouldn't have denial. We should admit that the situation is bad, and we should do what we can to fix it up. As I said, this is an absentee CEO, so I'm not so sure she knows what's going on in her own hospital.
Now, finally, before we let you go, response from hospital management says patients don't usually spend more than 2 nights in a chair. It is distressing for both workers and patients as we struggle to care for them as we'd like to. Now, as the shadow MEC of Health, what would be the acceptable standards? Because from my perspective, and certainly the perspective of many fathers out there, 1 day, 2 days, any amount of time sitting on a bench overnight while you're in labor is way too much time.
Well, absolutely. Can you just imagine, maybe you're a first-time mother and you're nervous. Even if you've had children before, it's always, nerve-wracking. And obviously, they should all be in a ward. They should all be in a bed. They should all be properly attended to, and they shouldn't get kicked out after 4 hours. That's the standard time. 4 hours. You have your baby, then you're out, unless there's, some very severe complications and you have to stay there. So this is not what we need at this hospital. It's not what we need at hospitals across the province. And I think until there's a change of political party running this province, unfortunately, it's going to say much the same.
Mr. Bloom, DA Shadow MEC of Health, we thank you for your time this morning. And we were having a conversation about the Rahima Moosa Mother and Child Hospital, where videos have surfaced of pregnant mothers lying on benches and sitting on chairs for a number of nights before giving birth.